Howdy folks, excited to do another live stream today, and I'm going to start working on a ruler for the Leatherman ARC. Actually, might need to go ahead and get this posted to the Reddit feed, right? So there's a Reddit thread on the Leatherman Reddit thread where somebody's trying to say, hey, let's get the ruler done. And I want to make sure that if anybody wants to see this live stream as far as working on this, I'll go ahead and add my link there. Let me add that. Howdy folks, the George and Bravo Foster 1, welcome. I'm going to laser etch the ruler, so let's just jump into what I'm planning. And this is what I worked on last night. Didn't feel like starting a live stream at 10 p.m. Worked on this for about an hour last night and kind of did the metric side. And I want to get different people's feedback on the layout of this, and then we can work on the inch side. But first of all, I do want to provide a little bit of an update on the holster itself. I have my prototype for the armored version of the holster. I was wearing this all day, actually working outside on quite a few things where I was using my ARC constantly. You can see that there are some scratches and things, so I did actually end up rubbing this up against stuff while I was doing work. And basically this is the same as my open face holster, other than having an armored front. We started this on a live stream, prototyped this on the Formlabs Fuse 1 last night, and it works really well. My biggest gripe, though, after using it today, is that, I did design this specifically. You pop the bottom edge like that. I'll show this a little better on camera. You pop the bottom edge, and then you can pull the tool out. It's not quite as nice as my regular open face holster, where when you want to get the tool out, you just grab it, and it's already in your hand, ready to go. So it does require a two kind of piece operation. Still better than a holster where you gotta undo a snap, get that snap out of your way. You just pop that, clip that, and then it's still very easy to dock. And then this is going to be compatible with the lanyard. It's not going to be compatible with the pocket clip. And then the same armored holster will also be compatible with the free P4. It basically will fit in exactly the same way. I printed it up as both the BDU loop holster that I wear every day, and also the duty loop holster. So the duty loop is just basically a bigger, longer loop for police duty belts, since EMTs, things like that, are going to be wanting this armored holster specifically. So that's exciting. It worked really well. You can see it will basically take abuse from the front without scratching your tool. And there's space above the actual tool for the piece. Like I said, covered that in a previous live stream. Howdy, Studley's Tool Chest. You've been in here before. Sorry if I actually don't remember your name. I'm bad with names like that, but I do remember him asking questions. Baldhead Racing. Howdy. Paul Miller. Howdy. I already got a question from Frost One's Ear. Wonder how the rule will be implemented since the laser engraving and the built-in-free technology in there. Yeah, so I'm a little worried about that. The internal engraving. Let's, if folks who don't have the ARC are curious. I'm not too worried about it because it's coated with black, and when you laser etch, you're going to end up with a white or silver kind of finish. So I'll have to end up seeing how that works out. It's on both sides, so it's going to affect both sides. Initially, I was thinking about adding a ruler along the middle here, But I actually found an error in my CAD model. If I switch over here back to Solid Edge. And this is more a result of me doing this CAD model from my previous free P4. But in either case, I have these kind of rounded edges between the flat part of the scale and the raised part of the scale, where I only colored in the face that was flat and not the edges, because that's kind of the way it is, where the texture is on the free P4. Sorry, I'm clicking on the wrong buttons in OBS. Where the arc is actually basically polished a little bit wider than the free P4. So in my CAD model, it looks like there's more black space to have a ruler in this slot. So you could have a ruler that you could use from looking at this face. But now that I've actually, you could maybe get tick marks into there, but it's gonna be really hard to etch that. So really the only place we can get a ruler is of course along the internal scales. There's a few issues with etching this though, namely the pliers. So if you got to imagine you're putting this, sorry, my camera keeps switching focus on me here. But you want to etch this guy's going to get in your way. If you're using a regular CO2 laser etcher, that's a gantry etcher that comes back and forth like this. There's going to be a couple ways around that. You could either use an open air etcher, the ones that fire from fairly high up. I don't have any experience with those. They may end up working out. The other option is to, and this is where we're going to design some jigs, is to put your tool flat like this, etch this side, then you'll have to flip your tool around, and then etch this side. Now there might be some potential accuracy issues with that because you're not doing it all in one job, but I think if we have the right jigs, that might work out. Let me catch up on a couple chats here. Howdy Saul and Extreme Tech. My holster's tipping me towards the scales on the arc. I love the arc. I was using it all day today. We have out at our work, we have a tripod that we end up using outdoors that's basically corroded, and had to basically take it apart and replace it. And it was kind of hilarious that I had more of the bits we needed to do that job on my belt than I actually had in my toolkit, like our regular work kind of toolkit. So I ended up using my arc for that. I ended up using it just to hold the nut while you're undoing, like hold the lock nut while you're undoing this bolt. So I used it quite a bit today. All right, and then we're gonna jump back over to CorelDRAW. So to that end, I've actually gone into KeyShot, which is what this program's gonna be right here. Let me see if I can make this window a little bit bigger for you folks. Running on ultra wide screen here. And I can blow that up a little bit. So to that end, I've actually gone into KeyShot and created diagrams where the tool is going to be in the position needed. The way I have this modeled, basically, I can grab just the scissor side here. This is how I did my exploded diagram. Tell it to pivot on that screw, and I can actually rotate this model and update this as needed. Fortunately, the Leatherman pliers open to a nice 10-degree angle. I need to double check that with the physical fit model, but it works pretty well for that. And then we're going to switch this into pause mode because KeyShot loves to suck away CPU. This is the design document for doing just the ruler, kind of what we want the final outcome to look like. I'm doing this in CorelDRAW. CorelDRAW is a program I use quite often for laser etching and even just general use. I really like it. I'm running the evaluation version because I don't necessarily have a home license right now. But it works to me better for technical stuff than, say, Illustrator or Inkscape. For example, in Illustrator, I couldn't even figure out how to get the darn grid to like lock onto the document and image, where this has the grid set up very well. I've specifically zoomed, if I zoom in here, the grid starts at the edge and just a little bit in where the radius is. So now these are all on a 1mm tick marks with little dots at the centimeter point. That was the usually use a long line for that centimeter point, but in this case I need to obviously be able to fit the number in there. And then a half mark every 5mm is what I did last night. The only thing that's going to be, people maybe going to have to be aware of, is that this last tick mark is not right at the 1mm. It's a little less, but considering how you're probably going to use this ruler, typically people go kind of from 2 to 8 or from 2 to 15, measuring something like that. Let me catch up on chat here. Yeah, seriously, it's not going to be a big deal, because yeah, most people will be using this for a rough estimate, or they'll just be using it just between on one scale or the other. I have found even on between my free P4, my garage, and my ARC, there is a small difference in the amount of gap. Basically, it's 2.2mm on my ARC when this is closed, where on my garage number 5 it's like 2mm, and then on my free P4 it's like 1.8. So it's going to have to end up being close enough. I'll catch up on a couple more things here. Yep, exactly what Bravo was saying, the gap between the pliers. Question. George's asking 2 questions. In the last live stream, you called out screws for the belt clip. What were those again? So those screws, and I have a belt clip right here. This is the one off of my garage number 5. And I'll pop one open just as an example, so somebody knows which screw we're talking about. This little teeny tiny screw right there. That is a number 256 thread, countersunk screw, 1/8 inch long, and a Torx T6 head if you can get it. You can, and I'll actually just jump over straight to my favorite vendor, at least for work stuff, McMaster. So if you go to McMaster Car, search for screws. Let me zoom this in for you guys a little bit. That's too much. You can directly go over here to type 256 under thread size. You'll get every 256 screw, flathead, 1/8 inch in length. I clicked the wrong button. And they have it with a Torx Plus in stainless steel. There's really only one when you drill down to that level. And so if you do need to order these, they're $8.84 for a pack of 50. Be aware that McMaster, while having the highest quality, will also have the highest shipping. They charge you they'll charge you another $8 shipping basically to ship this. And they won't tell you what the shipping is ahead of time, because they're mostly a business to business entity. You can also find you can find these same specs on eBay and Amazon if you need to. All right, let me catch up. And Bravo talking about compensated for it. All right. Adam's asking, so the new holsters won't work like the free P4, meaning it won't go in. It will only go in one way. Yeah, Adam, that was an issue where. So this is my free P4 holster. One of the issues I really liked about it was you could put it in literally any way and just dock it. For that to happen, there has to be 4 blade cutouts. It kind of looks cool. It's symmetrical. It looks cool. But it also means I'm limited to only 1 slot on the side for bit holders, unless I make the holster wider. Probably doesn't really affect the ratchet side. And I'm literally getting people just chopping at the teeth for more and more bit holders, constantly asking me for more bit holders. So yes, the ARC holster, and show the unarmored version, only has the bit slot on one side. The reality is, once you learn, you get muscle memory for this holster, which was actually screwing me up when I was wearing the armored version today, because I kept trying to reach down like I always do. There we go. Put this guy down. I was trying to reach down like I always do and pull my tool out, and I kept stopping myself. I had to get used to click that, pull that. So once you build the muscle memory for it, your thumb rests on that thumb tab, and you'll just remember how to dock it. And it's really not that big of a deal. CorelDRAW seems like blast on the past for me. CorelDRAW is a fairly old program. They update it very, very slowly. It's kind of frustrating, but they still do technical stuff way better. In fact, at work, I'm going to be doing the Corel Designer version, which is got 3D aspects and a little bit is designed kind of for doing technical drawings. We use that to do like quick start guides and diagrams and things like that. And again, it still ends up working better out than Illustrator, which is Illustrator's just geared entirely towards making magazines and stuff, and it's really, you have to force it to kind of act as a technical diagram program. I also started using it because that's what the universal laser that I had won a long time ago on a contest used. Been using the barnacle with the Screws McMaster, working great. Thank you for confirming that, Farmer Tyler. Looking forward to getting my holster. Didn't realize that I'd missed the ARC ruler until I heard the ARC wouldn't have one. I'm very interested to see this mod. And by the way, this is not going to be just for the sake of explaining. I'm not going to be offering this as a service. This is me doing the design. I'm going to release the files for free in CorelDRAW SVG format and probably as a PDF also, along with some scale guides. And it's going to be up to you to figure out how to get it etched. I'm going to try etching mine using my jigs that I think hopefully we'll design here in a few minutes. I'll have to actually get into doing, the design. I always get into the questions, and we'll have to skip over some questions till later. All right, got a G10. All right, I think I'm caught up on at least the questions. All right, so let's talk about how we're going to design the inch side of this. So I'll save you from the metric side. So all we're going to do here is document options. We're going to switch our units over to inches, and our grid, you have to exit this to apply, jump back in, and now I can reset the grid. And we're going to do 16 grid lines per inch, and a couple other things I'll have to do. I want the nudge to be 1/16 of an inch. And that's fine. The rest of that's fine. Okay, so now my ruler's set to inches, and we're going to jump over. In fact, well, let's do it this way. Let's grab all of this so that we don't have to look at this upside down. Let's flip the whole thing over and work on the other side. And you'll have to decide if you want which side you want as far as. It doesn't really matter, but typically, so if I look at a Westcott ruler here, this is my favorite ruler. This particular one actually is my grandpa's. They don't look any different from 50 years ago, but usually your inches go one way, and then you got to flip it around, centimeters go the other way, and that's exactly what we'll be doing here. So we need to get our origin at the left here where we want it. So we're going to drag it to about maybe here, because I think we started this a little further in. And just for the sake of consistency, we're going to grab our tick marks, and we're just going to start with our first tick mark, getting it onto the grid here. One thing that CorelDRAW does really nice, I can hit Control D, add. Well, let's see, we need to make this accurate. So, there we go. Plus 0.625, or actually 0.0625. And then I can hit D, I'm hitting Control D, and we'll have our 16th inch tick marks all the way across. And then we'll go through and delete the in-betweens that we don't need. And the arc does come out to, and if I remember right, I think it's 8 point. If you have it deployed, let's get some of this stuff out of our way. And it comes out to 8.5 inches, basically when it's laid out end to end, almost exactly. So that's going to be a nice handy thing that at least you can start on one end of the arc with the inch markings. And we'll grab our dot. Technically this guy is going to start on our dot. Let me get it centered. And Control D him as a duplicate. Plus 1 inch. Whoops. 0 plus 1. And there's our inch dots. Some of them are going to land in places we don't want. Now I know that other people on Reddit were like, oh, I'm just going to go try to find an image of a ruler. Rescaling an image versus having a true layout like this is not going to work for you as well. Whoops, I meant to put all the inch stuff on an all new layer. Let me go ahead and do that real quick. Put that on its own layer and paste in the same place, please. Thank you. I guess Imperial would be more accurate. So we're not, even though it kind of shows up in CAD, this little edge here, we're not going to be able to actually etch that little tiny edge. It will not come out well. So we'll just delete the pieces that we know aren't going to work, which is all this. And of course the very last one isn't going to work very well. Now I also am not wrapping these, say, around the edge, because if you start that laser firing down there, you're going to get a weird kind of effect. You can get away with it going around the curve like this. And we might tweak these a little bit, but I kind of want to stay consistent with what we have here on the, oops, and now I can't copy that because I just locked the millimeter side. Grab one of these. And I made these slightly thicker. And what do we want to do? If we want to emulate this Westcott ruler, so we want to tick mark at 1/4 inch. It's a little bit more harder. You know, metric, you only have basically 5 millimeters. So you basically have 3 kinds of tick marks: the whole centimeter, millimeter, 5 millimeter. If you're going to do 1/16 of an inch, you kind of want that. You almost end up with 4 different. That's the issue with fractions, right? So this might be something we got to get a little creative if we want to have that down to the 1/16 of an inch, which is this piece. This is down to 32nd of an inch. So we'll have to decide how we want to do these tick marks, and I can adjust those in a minute. In fact, I might do that in a little bit of a different way here. Actually, let's go ahead and do that. Let's not copy all of this until we've developed what we want our 1 inch mark to look like. And I'm going to do it between here and here, so we can decide what we want this to look like. Let me catch up on a little bit of chat here because I've seen it going by. If I say please, can you offer it as a service? I've debated, like, you know, calling up one of those companies that are like all over YouTube with these laser etchers and Facebook ads and stuff, and it's like, hey, you guys want to send me a laser etcher and I'll see if it works for this particular purpose. The reality is I barely find time to do this stuff. That's actually kind of why I'm live streaming. It's like, okay, I got an hour or two I can cut out, get something done before I got to jump off for some other thing. And the live stream kind of helps me focus and work. Otherwise, I'll work on it for like 10 minutes and then work on something else. I jump around a lot on anything I work like that. So I also can't really offer it as a service. I was offering my customization service, and I was just procrastinating getting people's orders back out to them, and I don't want to do that to people, so I just don't offer it as the service anymore. Sorry, but I will. Well, I will release all the files to the amount of detail I always do, and you should be able to take those to basically anybody that at least knows how to get things to scale correctly and get something done. And we're going to design some 3D jigs, and I'll actually release those also. Osprey should add this instead of free branding. Yeah. Their customization service, like I said, you're not going to be able to use this with the customization service because I can't guarantee what scale they use. People have had issues even with the customization service. If I jump over here, right, they customize your arc, but they kind of have to. They only basically do the scale area or the blade, and I'm sure they're using jigs for it. And they probably can get the scale accuracy if somebody's actually going and doing it that way, but you won't just be able to upload your image and have it work. So that's just going to be the reality of it. Ad's asking, will there be a version of the armored holster without any attachments like the ratchet holder? Because I want it slim and light as possible. I'll just answer that real quick. Yes. This is the slim version, and the armored version will just basically be adding that cover without any of the side features. So yes, the answer is yes. I'm working on the website to try to make it get past that 100 variant limit that Shopify puts in order to get as many variants available to people as possible. All right, so I think I still want the dots for our inch tick marks simply so we can have the number there. And then this will be our longest tick mark for 1/2 inch. So let's see here. We want to emulate the way the Westcott does it. That one ends up long. The longest one is actually the inch. This was going to be kind of confusing, right? It's not having the longest one be the inch. Having the longest one be the 1/2 inch. But I think with the numbers, it'll be a little less confusing. And we can grab these guys and pull them to about 1/4. So that, I guess that works. The other option is to have him still be a line. Well, I don't know. I guess that still works. Could even mark him in some other way, like I did down here, where he's going to be more bold. So 0.3 millimeters, so that your 1/2 tick mark shows up a little bit differently to your eye. And let's go ahead and bring a number in just because it looks weird without it right now. So this will be 1. And we'll set that at exactly the 1 inch mark. And we'll duplicate him, plus 1 inch, and put in the 2. Alright, any opinions on if we think that'll look good? Maybe only have the 1/16 of an inch. Maybe only have the 1/16 of an inch only on one end. You're talking about kind of like the Westcott ruler where it's got the 32nd of an inch at only one end. I actually think that a 32nd of an inch marking in this position, which is the clearest one, might be a way to go. But I don't know if eliminating the 16th inch marks, because 16th inch marks are going to be helpful. 1/2 inch marker should be lower than the bottom of the numbers, maybe. Yeah, and I'll tweak that here. So what I can do, grab him, align bottom edge, and then this guy I can drag back to be perfectly even with there. And we could even shift this whole thing down a hair, just so it's kind of even with the other side. In fact, let's just make sure it's perfectly even, because there's nothing more annoying than a mismatched ruler. So I just literally using this as a spacer. These are actually quite a bit further out than the metric side. about there. And I have the numbers more snugged up. You only got a certain amount of space here, so this is still going to have to be packed tight. So in this case, now the 1/2 inch mark's a little too long, and it's going to have to be pulled in a hair. You don't want to get so close to that edge because you're never going to necessarily get perfect alignment. So in that case, the 1/2 inch mark is going to have to be like more bold. And I might even go back on the metric side and make that 5 centimeter mark more bold. I don't think there's enough definition or separation between the 16th inch and 8th inches here. So those are going to have to go down. And I guess I should be doing this mathematically to a certain degree. So let's make this 0.1 inches. And snap to grid. There we go. Which means that these guys are going to be like 0.75 inches. Or 0.075. Whoops, 1 second. Without turning on the aspect ratio. And I'll fix their position. Well, actually, fix their positions now. Top edge. And then our 6th or 8th inch positions. 0.05. And now our 16th inch is all got to be like 0.025, just little small marks. That's a little more readable. I can catch up on chat better already. Thank you. We have Bravo Frost one's talking about having an exploded diagram on the ARC pad. Actually, so here's the 3D rendered version. If I turn on Keyshot, this took a lot of time in Keyshot to manually explode this out. In my CAD software, I can do it in a few minutes. In Keyshot, I had to manually kind of reorganize the entire file such that I can make these all land on nice even numbers. But it was fun to do, and then I tweaked it in Photoshop, and that will be coming out as some merchandise. Mouse pads and t-shirts. I'm hoping to offer those at the same time as the ARC. Like I said, I don't sell anything until I have a physical prototype. I did pay for rush shipping. We'll see when those arrive. Adam Thomas, out of curiosity, have you tried the metal holsters from our REA or RAE Gear? Since he got the idea for doing this in Adam Savage one-day builds, do you see RAE Gear as competition? I do. I haven't used their holsters. I'm fully aware of them. In fact, I called them out for the fact that they will scratch your tool because they're steel instead of nylon. They probably, they probably use they're not going to be using PVD coating and hardened tool steel, so they probably actually don't necessarily scratch your tool, but I'm sure they started designing those the same thing after looking at Adam Savage's videos, because they weren't out necessarily till then. Yeah, Bravo, the printables thing that I'm using has printing. I can put that artwork on literally almost anything you can imagine you can print, including posters and stuff. But currently, I think that a tool pad, kind of like you got the gun pads and things, there's plenty of knife kind of tool pads would be, I think, selling, and then t-shirts. And maybe I can offer poster. I can offer basically anything on their website, but I just wanted to start off with those initially. It cost about $60 to get all the prototypes I wanted to order, so I didn't want to invest in it if the printing didn't come out nice in a whole bunch of things yet. What do the plastic bits do? Subtlety's tool chest. You're talking about the plastic bits on the ARC. I'll wait for your reply on that, or get back to you on that. Oh yeah, somebody already replied. Cover the magnets. These little plastic bits, all I think they're there for is to cover the magnets. One thing with these magnets are sintered metal. People think that those magnets I guess I should switch over to the diagram view. People think these magnets are like a solid chunk of metal because they look like a solid chunk of metal. They are sintered material that is then nickel plated, and if you took your pliers, you could snap those right in half, and you'll find out they're kind of a powder inside. And so I think that that's more a matter of covering it up, so in case that magnet ever cracks on you, it's kind of contained, and because it'll actually still function even if it's cracked. The other thing I think of is just filling in that look. People quite often lose that little plastic piece. If you lose it, it's no big deal. It has no function in the tool besides cover the magnet. Maybe make it easier to clean off if you do get some filings there. But otherwise, yeah, there's not that much function to the tool for that little plastic piece. I think I've lost it on my free P2 already. All right, let's keep working on this. So I think we're kind of happy with the ruler. I think I'm going to tweak the position of this a little bit. And if you do the open air laser etchers, they kind of show an outline of where you're going to be etching. But I'm going to end up using a CO2 etcher, so I'm going to end up having to have a jig. It will end up getting this kind of precisely to where I have here within a good margin. And I might go ahead and tweak the metric side the exact same way. I think it could be pushed a little further to the outside edge, not that far. I want it to kind of go around the bend on the arc without actually reaching that face. Not that far. So we'll go to the middle of that bend, and then let's get the other side even again by just giving ourselves a little graphic. Let's put this guy to hairline so he's actually, the edge isn't skewing my results. Just a quick and dirty way of repositioning this. Just wanted to zoom out to select that. And so, whoops, went the wrong way. I think that'll work. All right, so let's see what this looks like if we expand this all the way across. So grab this, duplicate it, -1 inch. Grab that, including the 2 this time, duplicate it, +1 inch. Duplicate, 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 duplicate. And delete the ones that we know won't come out from the etcher. And then, of course, number this now. So unfortunately that 4 is going to disappear. It's going to be a little nerve-wracking laser etching the arc. Sometimes the laser etcher does not react well depending on how much that their material absorbs infrared light. Usually black, though, absorbs it quite readily. So let's save that. Any suggestions on this as far as tweaks? I know that the millicentimeter side ends up looking denser. That's just the same as it is in reality. I can't make this font much smaller. It won't be really readable or anything like that. It's a 7-point font. Let me catch up with some chat here while people reply. And there's also a little bit of a lag time between when you guys type and when, of course, I'm replying, things like that. Aren't all magnets sintered? No, not all magnets are sintered. There's plenty of magnets that are actually metal. That metal might be sintered, but it's not a powdery when it's done being sintered. And they're usually more expensive and not quite as strong as neodymium magnets, though. There are some, I think there are some stronger variants. Neodymium magnets do almost everything I ever need to do with the project, so I don't have any personal experience. I just know that, yes, there are non-sintered versions that exist. Plus a straight-up iron magnet, of course. If I understand correctly, neodymium magnets wouldn't be as strong if they were not sintered. Yeah, I believe that has to do with the composition, that you're not doing an alloy, you're doing an amalgam. Is essentially what's happening there, and then the amalgam of powders kind of increases the strength. When etching, should I remove the knife? So the way I'm going to have the jigs designed, we won't need to remove anything from the tool. Yeah, and work on a CO2 etcher. We'll get to that in a minute here. Now this also, because we're etching the black, means you don't have to wash your tool. So one thing is, and I'm curious how Leatherman's doing this, by the way. Maybe they're not using water, but when you want to laser etch a raw piece of metal, you either have to have an etcher that is a fiber laser that can directly actually obliterate the metal, and that's actually how they get the Leatherman ARC logo and other things in here. I'm saying that because I'm pretty sure I saw that in the factory video, how they actually get this effect. Because I was actually curious on the free P4, as an example, how in the world they put in these tiny dots. You can't really do that with a stamp press, not really well, especially with the polishing and other stuff going on. Of course, they're post-polishing it, but still. And I think in the factory tour, it actually looks like they're using a fiber laser to etch that. Now, I don't think that the customizers, customization service is using a fiber laser. Maybe they are. If somebody's got a personalized one, let me know if you feel like that has any depth to it, or if it feels like it's on the surface. If it feels like it's on the surface, they're using either Ceramark or Lasermark or Laser Bond 100, or there's a couple of different, basically ceramic paints. They're actually ceramic sprays that you put on, and then the laser will melt that ceramic coating in order to etch a naked metal surface. I use that professionally to do etching directly on aluminum, for example. So I'm because I've looked at the customization pictures, they always end up a little bit of a lighter black color. I think that's what they're using. Typically, you spray that on. Then you etch it. It's actually really fragile before you etch it, as far as it'll wipe right off with your finger. And then you go back and you have to wash it off, typically with water, but they could use alcohol or something, because I'm assuming they're not wanting to get the tools wet after. And we know that they're etching them after assembly, because there's people who get tools where the etching ended up bleeding over into their blade, for example, from the scales due to a misalignment. And so I don't know if what they're using to clean off that material. Probably an alcohol or something, and then having to apply oil or something back to the tool. I don't know how they're doing that, but in either case, I believe that's how they're doing it. But the plan here with etching the black will be that you don't have to apply any chemicals or anything. You'll just have to clean off any obliterated DLC coating with a little bit of alcohol. All right, let me catch up on chat here. Adam Thomas, I got a RAE metal sheath for my surge, and it was my biggest mistake ever because the surge was already so heavy in the metal sheath, just added the weight. It would snag your pants. Well, the surge will do that in the first place. It was before discovering your version. I've been using your horizontal P4 closed loop in the past year. Perfect holster for my aircraft engineering day job. Got a few compliments on it too. All right, thank you there, Adam. And again, the armored version will also be available with every belt clip option I have, so you don't have to give that up. The 4 is really a 5. Oh, thank you. My brain said sequential numbers, and that would have been a fun screw up. I'm sure somebody would have caught it before I finished. Thank you, JRO. Yep, next comments were all about that. You guys are looking at the screen and I'm looking at the chat, basically what's happening. Style call, but I might have done this where you could read off the bottom edge left to right and not the top edge. The bottom edge left to right. Are you talking about this face here? So, yes, you are right. Gerald, I am doing this backwards to a certain degree. Well, I don't know. It depends on which way you want to use your ruler. In this ruler, it's top left. Here's a Lufkin ruler. Of course, it's just on the left, but I think most people would be using it this way. If I flipped it to read on the bottom left, is that what you're talking about? Let's see here. Read off the bottom edge, left to right, not the top edge. Yeah. I'm going to be copying this kind of ruler I don't think most, I mean, even when you flip this around, it ends up on the top edge. Most people would be holding a ruler up against something and not against the top of something. So I think it's going to, yeah, it's going to stay on the top edge. IE number scale, flipped 180. I think you might be asking why not have the metric so that you don't have to flip the whole tool. But like I said, I'm going to treat it like a ruler where you're just going to flip the tool instead. So if I unlock this guy, so if you're using the metric side, you're just going to flip your tool around, and now you're reading from that side. Bravo asking, I just noticed that the IE Morse holster. Oh, I'm sorry, I forgot to switch cameras back. I'm bad at that. Yes, this is the IE Morse copper. I have one on my desk here that is its default position. I took a grinder and made it flat so I can put it tabletop on its butt. This is something I've had for sale for quite a while. I use this every single day. It works really well. You can even necessarily turn the light on if you need to. For example, taking a walk or something like that, you can have the light kind of pointing down at the ground, hanging off your belt. And so this is on my holster every day. My AirPods holster, which is not available yet, is on my belt every day. And if you're wondering what these look like after they get scratched up and stuff, they just kind of get a little bit of a shine, almost like leather, the way this nylon kind of wears in. It works really well in that regard. Oh, I thought that was part of the ARC holster. Yeah, no, those are just separate little holsters. I just kind of threw them in so that you guys can know they exist. I do get asked, and I just put that in the email I just sent out, can I add my very popular Streamlight or O-Light or any number of lights that are, quote, popular to the holster? And there's just too many darn popular flashlights for me to add anything like that. I love my little O-Light. I got a review on it. It lasts, for hours and hours and hours. I recharge that thing like once a month, and I use it almost every single day. So I really like it that way. All right, so let's move on from the ruler. What we'll do is save this, and well, actually not on from the ruler. Let's simulate what we're going to have to do in order to make this work. I need to delete some of the pieces over here that are off the page, so to speak. And let's simulate what it's going to have to look like for a CO2 laser. So we'll name this page CO2 side 1. And again, I made diagrams for this ahead of time. That's one of the beautiful things about a 3D rendering is I can just go ahead and where's my render diagram? Here we go. Looking at a different monitor. So this is the version so this is the side profile of this basically configuration that we're going to etch it in. And I'm going to get these on top of each other, lock them to a layer, and let's bring in, so this is the side without the pocket clip, so it's going to be all of this geometry, and we need to align it to the actual part. So for that, I'm just going to, very much zoomed in, just give us a box that aligns to that. It'll be more than accurate enough. Grab all of this geometry, come back over here, paste it, and just bring it over to fit. Now it doesn't fit because I just dragged these images in and I forgot to scale them. And so, let's see, I need to figure out what size those would actually be in that position. For that, I'm going to have to jump over to Solid Edge. And what is our exact config? Blade on the bottom left. So this view. These are, let's see here. Oh, because I got the pocket clip on. Do I have the pocket clip on the, yeah, I have the pocket clip on the other side from default. That's why it's confusing me. And we'll grab the scissor side here. 175 degrees? No. I'm always bad at this. This is going to be embarrassing. I should have my math here. 1 second. It's doing a little bit of undoing while I was doing that. Yeah, 175. What did I... Negative 175. That's what happened. Then we grab the entire scissor side, pivot it on the pivot point by -5 degrees so that those are nice and parallel, because this is how we're going to design a jig to go around this. And I need to know the overall width in this position. 200.12 millimeters or let's go 7.88 inches. And so jumping back over here, I just need to scale these images to 7.88 inches wide, 7.88 inches wide. Let's recenter that geometry. Now, if I align this, it should all work out perfectly. It may not be landing on grid exactly right. Let's just switch back over to this side, and I think we are good as far as where this looks like it's aligned on the part. So this will basically be step number 1 that you'll be etching this surface. And this is kind of how I actually would come up with a guide professionally, as far as if I need somebody to, if I need, say, had a service that started doing this, this is the instructions that I'd be kind of coming up with, and this would be the step. And the cool part about CorelDRAW is can also say, like, it doesn't send out the rendering, it'll send out just the right chunk of data. And then we'll do side 2, and I'm going to catch up on chat here before we do side 2. Zach Lind, welcome. Join late, what's happening? Working on the ARC holster, and then you can look at the replay later talking about the, working on the ARC ruler, talking about the armored holster. This is going to be a giant design for laser gray. I'm going to have to go back and rewatch. Love to know what's happening. Yeah, so this is coming up with a design that you could take to a laser engraver, and it's going to be a set so that you can use any type of laser engraving. This is going to be a set of parts. In fact, I should show this with this so you can kind of get a perspective. 8.5 inches wide. That might be the wrong orientation. It is. It's this guy. And let me center that, move that up. So if you wanted to laser etch this, the pliers are going to get in the way because the pliers are poking up in this regard. So that's the point behind doing this. And we'll do a 3D printed piece. And we'll go ahead and get started on that. And we'll do side number 2 a little bit later, or I might even just do that off camera since it's going to be the exact same operations. And we also already have this basically set up that way. And I'm not necessarily going to, I can undo these changes because I just did that as whole rotations. I can undo those later in my file. So we're going to create a whole new part. And I don't care where the origin is. And we're going to make it metric just because I like to work in metric on 3D printed parts. I can use either one. And we are going to, I got a folder for the ruler. And this is going to be ARC, laser, etching, jig. And I'm going to call it scissor side. That's the side, basically while you're etching the side that the scissors are on, this is the jig you'd be using. And this will be a 3D printed jig you can make on any 3D printer. I'm not going to make it so complex that it has to be done on an SLS printer. I'll catch up on chat while it's generating the file right now. Would etching this void the warranty? I don't know. You'd have to play with Leatherman support on that. Their etching doesn't void the warranty. I really doubt this would void the warranty. You're not physically modifying the tool in any way where you're damaging it. Arguably, changing implements can void the warranty because you're taking the tool apart, and putting it back together. You won't have to in order to use this jig. So the first things to do is make sure that my tool's activated so that I can pull in all the geometry I need. Gerald Hofferth, thrilled to see your email with the News that Exploded View t-shirt. That'll definitely be a buy for me. Be aware that the shipping, and then what I did say in the email, the shipping will be separate because it's just basically be done by Printify, which is of course a just drop shipment service, very similar to Shapeways that does my design. And the funny part is I had the design where it looked really professional. It said Leatherman ARC in the corner and said Magna Cut and everything, and then I realized last night, right before I was preparing that email, yeah, I probably shouldn't put trademark words onto there. Leatherman ARC is visible on the actual thing, but that's free. That's fair use because that's what the actual tool looks like. But I couldn't put the actual Leatherman logo and ARC and Magna Cut all directly on there. I really wish I could. All right, we're gonna pull in this geometry, and we're even gonna pull in the pliers and just make this something so that you could just drop the tool in. It'll have a known height. It'll have a known quantity from the left origin of your laser etcher so that you can get that accuracy. And I know from my holster that this is very accurate as far as the tool will just nice snugly stick in there. So grab all that geometry. We'll subtract some other things later. Hide all those pieces. And while I'm at it, I'm going to turn on my nice little thing here. This CAD software is Solid Edge, not to be confused with SolidWorks. And I want to close up just these shapes real quick. Why are you not meeting? There it goes. Is it because this is kind of a it's not just a nice single curve? Well, technically we don't need that curve. It just would have looked cool. We just need the tool to fit in there perfectly. And actually layer lines might get in the way of that anyways. So instead, let's just keep it stupid simple, right? So that's basically what's going to cradle the tool. We'll worry about subtracting out the knife and other things in a second. We'll give that maybe, doesn't have to be very big, 4 millimeters. We'll draw this across, we'll draw this guy down. Don't need to worry about the slight difference in thickness over here. And we'll close up our pieces here. And then we'll extrude this horizontally, just enough to cradle the tool perfectly. These types of jigs are something, again, I've done professionally to laser etch odd-shaped aluminum enclosures and things. Or even etching an entire set of aluminum enclosures where there's a stack of pieces and they all say they have different numbers or something like that. And need to kind of all work together as one unit in the end. I'll design a jig so you can just drop the whole thing in, laser etch the whole surface, pull the whole pieces, and then separate all the pieces out afterwards, and then build up the electronics or whatever goes inside. Might as well make it compatible with the belt clip because people are obviously going to just want to leave it on. And for the blade, we probably just need to do a simple straight cutout to make this work for anybody, regardless of what 3D printer you have. That's the goal. Google the jig could locate the part either side with or without the clip lanyard on either side. Yeah, it probably will. We'll find out by actually flipping this over in CAD if the jig will work just flipping against the other side. It probably will, flipping 180 degrees. But we will make it work for this config first, then see if it works for the next config. And we probably just got to subtract some areas in order to make it work for the next config. So I want to pull in the blade with a little bit of tolerance. And how long does the blade cutout need to be? Might as well put it all the way out to there, which is that edge. And there's going to be a little cutout for the spring kind of pieces that poke up, but I just want to grab. If you're not used to CAD, sorry about all the camera work, but that's the way CAD works. Lots of spinning around of different views and things. We'll just do that as a rough cutout. The more snug I can make this, because if you put this into a jig, the jig's going to be able to be flexible, especially if you make it out of something like PLA. So we can kind of make it have a snug fit. I'll add a little bit of tolerance, just like 0.3 to this cutout. And grab the, whoops, wrong piece. Come on. Give me this. Okay, let me hide the arc. There we go. Oh, that was further. The sketch was further down than I thought. So the reality is that's obviously going to be useless thin material. So we'll just go ahead and erase out that chunk. So that'll sit in there nicely. It'll sit against the pliers pretty nice. And we do need to do some sort of subtraction for these guys. For these, we're just going to do a simple circle, real rough. That just needs to be big enough to clear those. And extrude these. I keep hitting the wrong thing. Come on, give me the chain. Thank you. And I'm going to hollow this out so that I can make it available to order on Shapeways without it costing an arm and a leg, because there will be, of course, people who are going to just want me to provide it. Of course, people want me to actually do the etching for them, but my work etcher is for work, and I won't be doing anything but my own on that. Round those guys off, it'll print a little better. And depending on what kind of laser etcher you're using, I might need to make this a little wider so that you have a known position. On my printer at work, it's no big deal. You just would snug it up. Well, actually, you know, I kind of want this so that you can get the scales really precisely put in there. All right, let me catch up some chat here. Yeah, the plan's going to have one jig for both sides. Thank you, FLH Pete. Your ability to communicate and create it simultaneously is fascinating to me. I've had a few weeks of training. At my company, I've been the sole product design engineer for a decade, but we just hired me somebody a couple weeks ago, and I've been training him, so I've been doing this for a couple of weeks of just literally almost 8 hours a day, teaching everything I know on how to do product design, kind of like what you're seeing here, on how to actually do this kind of stuff, such that he can be as proficient as me in a couple years maybe. I think that'll work for this. We do want the height. The height is something we're going to want to know. And in that case, let's go ahead and put it directly into the 3D print. So that, and get this maybe to a nice whole number. So it's 35 millimeters, which is 1.38 inches. So let's go ahead and make it that exactly. Actually, I need to lock that guy down. This might be a little thin down here, so we might bump that up a hair. Okay, 1 second. Why are you not giving me the option to change that number? There it goes. 36 millimeters. Oh, it's not going to be nice. Well, I got to do this a little bit differently. Which should just give me a reference line. Maybe even more than that, because you're printing on an FDM machine. That little piece is going to be kind of wiggle on you. So we need the extra thickness here. 38 millimeters. Does that come out to something nice in inches? Close enough to 1.5 inches. Let's do that. So we'll actually etch straight into the surface of the 3D print, 38 millimeters or 1.5 inches to surface. And make that text fairly big so that, because it's going to be side print, depending on how you do it on your FDM printer, it might not come out so well. Aerial rounded works very well. Do I not have aerial rounded on my home computer? Darn it. I like the rounded one just because you don't end up with sharp edges that kind of capture things when you go to process, like bead blasting. So people talk about, like, you know, okay, how tough is like my holster material and things like that. To actually make these parts, they're sintered in powder. I depowder them with just a brush, and then a nylon kind of brush, and then this goes into a bead blaster. So it's a glass media bead blaster, just like you would use on metal. You bead blast the entire surface, it gets rid of all the powder, and then it's just washed with water and then blast dried with air. So if your holster, you end up with a bunch of grease on it, you can take it apart, take all the tools out, throw it in the dishwasher. You might lose some of the dye when you do that, but you can just wash it and dry it. There's not any hollow walls like you get with an FDM or ABS 3D, or any of the FDM kind of 3D printing technologies. These are solid parts. And, oh, somebody's probably already corrected me in chat that I misspelled too. It always ends up that way when I look over here. Come on. This is embarrassing. Well, let me open this up to edit it. Come on, there we go. Oh, actually, that was supposed to be or. There we go. Now, I might need to hollow it before I do that, so we're just going to leave that alone for now. I think I'm a little worried about this sidewall. And we might want to make it such that that sidewall ends up being a known distance so that you can kind of double check it. Most laser etchers have rulers in them. So switching back to Corel Draw here, it might actually be kind of cool to put a ruler inside this, but that case, that wouldn't be working with anybody's 3D printer. So I may not be able to go ahead and do that. It's just going to have to be that the jig file will be part of this, so you can account for that when you go to put it in your machine. That's what we're going to end up having to do. And I want to turn off offset mode and just make that another 2.5 thicker. Same thing with this, just so that doesn't flex on you too much. It is going to make this part a little expensive to do with a FD or an SLS 3D printing because it's a long part. It takes up more space in their machine. The other option is to make it a short part where you don't care about this side and you only etch this side, then flip the tool over, and then this whole thing doesn't have to be so long. That might be the way to go here. Whoops, what happened there? That was supposed to be a cutout. Something moved. Somebody might have even noticed that while I was doing this. Plan on selling the files. This is not going to be a send-in service, and I'm not going to be selling the files. I'll be giving these files away at the once I've validated them by doing my own. So it's not going to be right away or at the end of the stream. I must have done that when I moved something earlier. I accidentally lowered that entire thing. That's why I thought that looked so thin. Solid Edge has some really nice features where it'll do symmetry and things like that, but the one that gets annoying is the offset tool. I don't know that we need all of this. We just need enough length to support this, because you want the etching over here to be precise. So you're actually going to put it in the tool such that your origin is where my cursor is right now, to the left side, such that you're etching basically the metric and millimeter version of this guy. Then you can take this whole tool, flip it over, and you should be able to etch the other side. So I might cut this tool down. We're not going to cut it down yet until we know it works for both sides. The other issue is that, of course, you want to hold up the side so this side doesn't flop around. In fact, that might be a good reason to add some geometry so that the tool doesn't fall off the side. I could either add sidewalls, but that makes the part bigger, or I can add internal geometry in here that keeps the part snugged into place. And I think we're going to go for the internal geometry because it doesn't make the part any bigger. So in that case, pull in from this sketch a edge. Why am I not getting that edge? Because that might be a silhouette edge. 1 second here. Meaning it's on a curve. No? It may have deactivated on me. Let's save and pull it in again. There it is. So pull in those two edges. We'll give ourselves a little bit of tolerance, just like 0.15 millimeters. Just so it doesn't get stuck inside the tool, but still holds it nice and snug. We can go ahead and pull that geometry real solid and just give us 6 millimeters of a wall right here. Pulling this up, might as well pull it all the way up to the scale surface, because that's the same height as over here, although he's actually not all the way to the scale surface. Let's pull him up to meet where the scales are. Having the jig fit nice and precise means that you also kind of know if you got it in the jig correctly. And delete those sketches. And we might as well round this, because rounds are just always cool, and they're free with 3D printing pretty much. I could add another one to this other end. Don't know if I want to, because there's a little bit more complex geometry down there, and I don't want to get something really thin. And I think the thickness of this will kind of keep it in place on the jig. So let's see if the jig's going to work for the other side. So we'll just go ahead and do this virtually. I'm going to anchor this guy down in case I accidentally move him. Save the project. And let me catch up some chat real quick. Do you think it would be possible to drill a sewing eye into the awl? I wouldn't recommend it. I tried. Somebody contacted me while I was still doing my service and asked if I could add the free P4 pocket clip to his Leatherman Crunch. And I was like, yeah, sure, I could do that. I could drill and tap stainless steel. I do it all the time at work. This is hardened stainless steel. Leatherman during the AMA confirmed that they do harden the scales on all their tools. I managed to get it done. I burned through 4 diamond bits, like snapping them. I didn't end up breaking the titanium nitride coated tap. I was surprised that that worked really well. But yeah, you can if you're using a diamond coated bit. And lots of coolant. I didn't really have any coolant on hand. I was just spraying it with some WD-40 and still broke the bits. So don't recommend drilling a hole, but you could. And Lynch is talking about, yeah, a carbide drill bit could get it done. I actually did try a carbide drill bit and had to switch to diamond. But maybe I got a crappy carbide drill bit. I mean, they're just stuff off Amazon. Tony Raymond, great quality, thank you. The jig could be a cool display stand. If I did make this prettier, Sure, you could have this as a cool kind of display stand. And I will release the full step file. So if you want to bring this into your CAD software and customize it afterwards, I'm not releasing the ARC CAD file, just the jig CAD file. Just to be very clear on that. I don't want Leatherman to have copycats. I like Leatherman, so I will not be contributing to those copycats. So holding mark in this position, it seems the fig makes sense mechanically. Has the plier head closed? Should yours reflect that? It could. Let's look at this, because you might be onto something where I should have it closed and I don't have it closed, and that might affect the jig. Let's think about that. If it's open, like I'm showing now, the position will be slightly different. So you're right. Let me correct that, and let's see if we had to adjust our jig. Thanks for catching that. Let's go to the knife side. I should have rotated not the pliers. I should have rotated just the knife side. So let's close that back to its regular position. And open just the knife portion. This is why I want to do this live, by the way. One, rulers are something that people get very, very particular about, and I want that feedback ahead of time. But having somebody watch over your shoulder, so yes, this jig would not have worked. The pliers would have ended up in the same position, because this is actually the other side of the plier, and this is this side of the plier. But the other, if we didn't, but I think we're going to end up with a cut-off jig. But the actual position of the tool is different here. All right, who said that? I got to go. Thank you, Gerald Hofferth, if I'm saying your name right. What alloy of the tools do you know? Leatherman during the AMA said that all the tools except for the MagnaCut blade are... somebody's going to correct me on this. Is it 400 tool steel or 300 tools? I can't remember the name of the... But they're all the same tool steel, basically. All the implements, and I believe they actually said the scales were that way. And so this guy needs to come down to that position. And I think we're going to go ahead and chop this down. In fact, we might just chop it all the way down at this point. No, because that's going to flop around on you. So we need to have some sort of... Here's something I can do that I can go and turn on the center of gravity. So I have this fully set up. Okay, of course it's going to lie to me with the proper tools, but we're going to say everything is made of stainless steel. Calculate it, display the center of mass. So that's the center of mass. Now, of course, let's do the center of mass of just this portion. So there's the center of mass. So it just hid it on me. Why did it hide it on me? Told it to display it. It was over here somewhere. There it is. So it's over here, right here. So either the holster has to come out at least that far. Granted, all the weight of the tool's over here, so we don't have to come out quite that far. Let's just maybe find some nice whole number or something like that, just to keep this so that it's a reasonable size. For example, if I want it to fit in my SLS 3D printer without having to put it on its top, it needs to be less than 6 inches. So I think we're going to go for 6 inches. Did I land on 6 inches perfectly, just drawing that out? That's weird. It does have a certain amount of snapping in the CAD, so it might just snap to 6 inches. So we're going to subtract all of this such that I can fit that in my 3D printer at work. And I don't need these aspects. And that should be closer to the center of gravity once that counts, that this shouldn't flop around out there. Another option might be maybe we put some magnets in this, but I guess that's getting more and more complex. Curtis Iola. Oh yeah, 420HC. Thank you, Zach. Yes, that was correct. 420HC is what they said in the AMA, and you can go back and check the AMA on Reddit. Double check that against me if anybody's actually asking about that. Curtis Iola, does the Volti fit in the barnacle? Let's find out. I have my Volti switch now, and I don't think the switch will fit, but the Volti bit will fit. So let's pop that guy out, and let's just see if the Volti switch happens to fit in the current barnacle, and it won't because of the little cutout there. And I don't really plan on making a bigger barnacle, and if you wanted to put it upside down, I mean, you can kind of leave it hanging there. Now the Volti not switch, the regular Volti bit, which is this guy here, should fit in the barnacle bit holder. Has a it's a little tight, and I think it's because the epoxy's hitting. So it's not really comfortable to take that in and out. I'm gonna use the other guy to push him out. But yeah, it does. The Volti does, but not the switch. All right, now let's go back. I think we got this working, and we were going to reconfigure the tool this time properly and see if it works for the other side. So let's pull in the knife portion, can now go out by, I'll just drag it there and figure out what number it needs to be, because I can't in my mind right now. 170 degrees because I've already moved it 5. And we'll grab the scissors and bring them back. It should be 175 degrees. Well, actually we had to move it back 5 though, so let's get that in line 170 degrees. Then we'll flip the whole tool around. And it's going to have to flip in 2 axes to work here, which is fine. Whoops, minus 5 degrees. Or 10? 1 second. Might have gone negative. There we go. And I'll probably have to realign this after I flip this around, just because the center, it basically jumps the center of volume. But that's fine. Or I could just, you know, be smart and use the constraint tools and actually align it. Let's do it that way. He's currently aligned to a whole bunch of stuff, but they're all suppressed. That's fine. We're going to suppress that. And let's just go ahead and physically assemble him as if we're doing proper CAD work. And we made that match the width of the scales. There we go. Looks like it'll work for either side, other than I have to add a blade cutout to this side. No big deal. Catch up on chat while this opens the sketch. Hold on. What is a Volti? I must have missed that one. Adam Thomas, the Volti switch is something you do not need, but it's super cool. Either the regular Volti, which is this guy on the left here, and it's made by PC Doodle. He has a website, PC Poodle, where he sells security camera stuff, and so he works with 12-volt systems all the time, doing security camera work, and he designed this. The regular Volti bit is a multimeter that goes from a 3 to 24 volts or so. You basically hook it up to something, and it blinks in LEDs what the voltage is. So, but it's still hilarious to pull this out and say, here's a multimeter. Now, the Volti switch is even cooler. It has a battery on board. It's a little bit bigger, and there's a switch on the backside. If I turn this guy on, he starts blinking. And by default, I I haven't got all the functions memorized yet. By default, oh, I don't. Whoop, that's not where it is. I want the card here. Yeah, here it is. AC volts, DC volts. It works only up to 24 volts still, but it'll actually tell you the temperature. And I actually find the most use for this so far is that it actually works as an AC voltage detector, a live detector, and having a live AC voltage detector that's this tiny and just on your belt can be very handy when you're working around on your house or something like that. And it's just a silly little cool thing. Apparently, I've helped him with some sales already because I've made the holster compatible, and I think that's just an absolutely fun little tool. He's making some other stuff supposedly soon. He's posted a few things to Reddit talking about could he somehow get a bit-sized flashlight. I think that would be really cool if he could figure that out. That battery has a tiny capacity, so you could maybe have a tiny little flashlight, but this time we'll do a little fancier cutout for that. I don't want... When did it stop selecting the sketch I'm not even using? Thank you. Looks like I have to basically cut that all the way in to here. And here's some cool things that you can again do in CAD that is I can go ahead and do an inspection and do an interference check between this part and everything else currently shown and see if we have some issues. I think I'm okay with the interference in those areas because that's basically where it's supposed to be snugged up against, but it looks like I might need to tweak, because we changed that angle, I do need to tweak this guy, so that interference check is helpful. So this guy and this guy are interfering. I need to add a slight cutout. Basically, I just need to extend, just delete that, and then that should now be perfect. That's going to be a little bit annoying to 3D print. On an SLS printer or an SLA printer, that type of angle is no big deal. On an FDM printer, it's going to end up with so many layer lines here that it might be very annoying. But that's kind of the feature that's keying in this side of the tool. You can always just say you snug up only this left edge so that when you throw this in the laser etcher, you only care about this left edge and you don't care about what any of the rest of the tool's doing. In that case, I can just draw a cliff kind of cutout here. And maybe that's what I'm going to have to do, and you just have to worry about aligning that left edge. That way it's more compatible, and I did want this to be more compatible with different people's 3D printers. Yeah, he was trying to make a tiny flashlight. He just posted as a, hey, would somebody, he just made a mock-up, would people want this? And of course people are going to want it. Interesting that goes down a little bit. I guess I kind of need to keep that small dip. But let's just do this. That's a straight line. Let's just bring that in just to make this again more compatible with anybody's 3D printer. And we'll cut this away. I think that will work for the jig. Let's hollow it out so that it can be printed on an SLS machine. And we'll just make it like 4mm walls. And I can pretty much offer a version that'll work for FDM where you got internal hollow geometry. But this will make it cost a little bit less to manufacture. Actually, let's find out how much it is going to cost to manufacture, because I'm not going to be, if I do upsell this, it's going to be by just what I need to cover kind of my costs on shapeways and things. And we'll just go ahead and leave this really basic and square without any rounding. And let's find out how much this is going to cost on shapeways. That way I'll figure out if I really need to hollow it out or if it's no big deal. So we're going to save the STL file and to my ruler folder, which I'm already in. And this is now just the jig instead of the scissor side, because just one jig was going to work. I know I haven't put in the etching in here yet, so let's go ahead and do that just so it's make it 1 millimeter deep. Re-export that STL. I'm going to do this on another window in case I accidentally show up some of my other upcoming projects or things. I don't want to promise it. Like I said, I don't like promising things before I physically test them. So give me 1 second here while I do that, and I'll catch up on some chat. DC voltage testing, yep. All right. And Shapeways is processing the model, and now I'll bring this back in. So $31 is pretty expensive just for a jig. So let's see if we subtract some material from this. I'll have to remove the etching that I just put in for now. Let's go ahead and delete it and I can add it back. If we make this with, say, walls like that, problem is it's still a fairly voluminous object. We can actually remove, I can remove that after the fact. Now on a printer like the Formlab Fuse 1, the cost is actually quite reasonable even for a part like this, because you're just paying basically by physical volume of material used, where with Shapeways they're charging you for physical volume of material sintered and the physical volume it takes up inside their machine, because they're nesting your part with everybody else's parts. So let's see if this version of the jig is any better. Jump back to Shapeways and update this part. Gives it a second. It is pretty fast on how it quotes things. So that removed a lot of mass, and we'll find out what the price ends up being. And Shapeways for a very brief time had FDM 3D printing as an offering. I think because of the issues with overhangs and stuff. So that only comes out to $16. And probably end up having to sell that for maybe $18 to $20, which I think is reasonable enough. So I'll go ahead and have a version of this like this, and I'll release a version that's good for FDM 3D printing where you don't have to worry about the internal parts being hollow. Along with all the CAD files and design files. So let's bring the jig into CorelDRAW, and we'll actually update what it's going to, so that you actually got your design files ready to go. Let's drag this off to another window here. Don't think you need the etching since it's such a niche product. Everyone getting it would have all the info needed from the description of your product. Yeah, but not everybody has access to a 3D printer. They're becoming more and more common, but if they want to order it and then take it to their local trophy shop that has a laser etcher, and then along with the PDF file or whatever we provide, that way anybody can have access to it. So 1 second, let me save, reopen the jig, and this time we'll export it such that we can drag it into CorelDRAW and have its kind of positioning. So, like I said, it'll work in either orientation. So make a new drawing. And I'm just going to put this in a blank. I don't actually have a blank template at home. I sent an email I did the other day about a sheath or add-on to an existing sheath that would position the sheath below the belt instead of on the belt to wear a jacket more comfortable. So, what Shad Warrior, what you're talking about is a drop holster, and I do have those for some of the other tools, but I haven't done one for the free series. It hasn't been requested very often. And also, because of what I just showed here, it can be very expensive because it gets longer and longer and longer. And the drop holsters I've ordered, I think 3 people have ordered them in 5 years. That I offer them for the surge and the wave and the charge. So I don't really plan on putting extra effort into that. And we want this at 1:1 scale. And I don't need the background on. I'm just going to be exporting this basically as a DXF. And I don't need the hidden edges. Give me a second here. Turn off hidden edges. I actually do want the tangent edges, just so I can see where the curves end. Then we'll save this as a DXF to our folder. And then CorelDRAW works, like I said, much better at technical stuff because like importing DXFs works really well. Or I can just drag this in now. And we'll put this on its own layer because it's going to be a reference for how to use the jig. And we'll just go ahead and make it red and a little bit thick so people can see it. And we'll put this layer behind the arc in a second, but it basically is going to go in position there. Let's maybe not make it quite so thick. And if I lower that now, move that layer down. Oh, come on. Fine, I'll move that layer up. Whoops, wrong layer got moved. There we go. So if you're putting this into a machine, you're actually going to be flipped around 180 degrees, most likely. I know that's not good view with it being on the bottom there, but it does show you how to position your tool with the pliers closed. Thank you to the guy who was talking about that. And as long as you're aligning this, so what we'll do here is a call out on that layer. 0, 0, point for using jig, a 3D printed jig. Because there's going to be people who are going to want to use this without the jig. I don't know, maybe they just prop this up with some wood or something to get it to hold. And then still want to etch the ruler. That's going to be a do it at your own risk thing. In this case, I'm going to, kind of, to me, this is the proper way. So let's go ahead and do side number 2 by duplicating this whole page. CO2 side 2, CO2 version, or just etch side 2, I guess I can just call it this. I'll release the files for etching. Somebody's going to have to edit them if they want to use it for a different laser, because like I said, I don't have whatever their different laser is. It'll be kind of set up for CO2, and you'll have to reposition this however your laser decides 0, 0 is. They have them in different places depending on the particular setup. So in this case, let's go to our render diagram versions and pull in the other orientations. Let's double check in CAD what our other orientation actually ended up being, just to make sure that everything is correct. So our other orientation is ignoring the pocket clip. the blade facing away from me to do the blade side etching. Okay. Let's switch back to this guy. And this guy is going to be let's look at our files. Do I even have that rendered? We might have to re-render that out of Keyshot. Let me see here. No, I do have it. I think it's this version. It's just flipped around, which is fine because, like I said, we're going to etch this and this with that being the 0 point. And I'll have to pull up the right diagram up there. So 7.88 inches. And catch up some chat here, unless I remove clip. Convert the arc to be left-handed. Suppose it will conflict with your holster unless you remove clip. Shaywar, you can use the pocket clip with my holster, even if you do it left-handed, because the arc. Well, first of all, I guess I should mention the holster won't work with your left-handed version until I release the left-handed version. I plan on doing that. It's just literally mirroring all the CAD files. But also because the arc got pocket clips on pocket holes on both sides, you can do that. Just that it won't work with the armored version. You can use the pocket clip with the open face version. Just basically, I got one in a bag here, bad example, but it ends up being just fine as long as you're not using the armored version. All right, we need to pull in the right graphic here. So looking from the top down, that would have the blade on the bottom edge. Digging through my graphics here. It's this guy, but I think I have to rotate him 180 degrees without changing his scale. Does that look right? I think that looks right. Let's physically look at the arc, make sure that this looks like it's correct. So I'm going to pop open my arc, hold it up to the screen in this position, and rotate it 90 degrees. Yeah, we're good. And this is also the 7.88 wide. And now I need to align him. I'll have to bring in the, one second here. So that needs to be on a different layer. Along there. And we'll nudge him. Now I need to go in and bring call this ruler goal. All of these pieces into this layer. Oh, and I forgot. I need some way to align this to the graphic. So all I need is like that added. Grab that. Go back over to our side number 2. Drag this up. And now, what happened to the metric side? Did I miss? I bet you I missed just grabbing it. Darn it, my bad. Alright, 1 second here. Hopefully my video is being smooth. YouTube's giving me a warning here. Okay, this time I got the metric side dragged in. Wait, what the heck's going on? I swear I just deleted that 2 seconds ago. CorelDRAW can sometimes hide things from you until you zoom out or zoom back in, and that might have been what happened there. Oh, that's what's happening. Why is that a group? That's not supposed to be a group. I was just straight up deleting it when I deleted that chunk. There we go. So that should be that side of the tool. And it'll work with the jig. Alright, I'll refine all this before I release it. It's not going to necessarily happen this weekend. I'm going to be working on getting renderings, getting the website working. But that will, in theory, be a good method to get you a ruler onto your arc. I'll of course do it on mine before and kind of show the results of that. And then I'll release the 3D printed files and everything once everything's kind of physically validated, so that you don't have to go through the pain if I screw up. I really wish the 8 could be out here, because then you can know that this is 8.5 long. And the other reason to remove the in-betweens, even if the laser kind of missed stuff, is that if you were doing a fiber laser or something that can etch in open air, that guy might not come out. You might accidentally actually etch the stainless steel. Alright, I'll give a few minutes for a couple of questions, last minute questions that I can show in CAD, but otherwise I think that's it for the ruler until I actually release the files. But we got a design. I think it could look really good. It's actually very readable. This is going to look small on your screen, but if I do this and hold my arc up to the screen, this is actual size to my eye. Maybe a hair too small. I need to calibrate CorelDRAW. There we go. Now it's actual size. To me, that's fully readable to my eye. So I think that'll do it for the ruler. And then again, the holsters hopefully are coming out this weekend. I have no changes to the armored version, so all the rest of the geometry of the armored version is going to be identical to my prototype that I'm going to receive this Friday, hopefully, assuming the overnight shipping works well. And that once I typically will end up having to do some last second tweaks. The Fuse 1 is very accurate, but sometimes it makes parts actually looser, so these might be really loose on my holster, and then when I get it from Shapeways, it might be way too tight. Even then, sometimes Shapeways has a little bit of variance between builds. So again, that's why I physically prototype. All right, I don't see any other questions unless my stream has died or something. Thanks everybody for joining me. I appreciate it, and hopefully you'll have a ruler on your arc within the near future. Thanks for watching.